Do you ever feel like there's a time where a venue may not need a CRM system or any sort of tech tool solution?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal for any business when you open a business is to make money. Making money comes from sales. Sales comes from lead management. It comes from your process from the minute a client becomes interested.
You're listening to the Venue RX podcast.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Venue RX podcast. My name is Jonathan. I'm your host here. And on this channel, we like to document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues. And we're passionate about bringing this information to you because 2 years ago, when we started our venue management business and really started getting into the venue world, we didn't really find that many resources out there for venue owners and for people, not just in the wedding and events industry as a whole, but specifically for venue owners. And so we set out to create that, and it's been so fun. We've had this really cool venue owner series where we get to talk to real venue owners. You know, we do solo content as well, and then we also talk to professionals and experts in the industry and people who have tools specifically for the industry and specifically for venue owners. And that is one of the shows that we have for you today. I'm really excited to welcome to the show Sarah Kincaid with Aisle Planner. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's a pleasure.
Well, I'm excited to dive into Aisle Planner, really understand more about the software a little bit. This is kind of cool because it comes from me on the heels of doing a demo actually with you. Was it last week?
It was 2 weeks ago Fridays or so. Yeah, we're
2 weeks ago. Okay.
Just outside of a week, but yes.
Cool. Yeah, I regularly lose track of time, and my wife is like, "How do you not remember these things?" But my mind is everywhere sometimes. But it was really cool, and we did the demo, and we're considering switching from the current CRM platform that we're on, and considering Aisle Planner. And as soon as we were going through the demo, I was like, "I've got to have you on. We've got to share this with some of the other platforms that we've talked about. We have to share Aisle Planner with everyone as well." So before we jump into that though, can you give me a personal background on you, how you got into the industry, how you ended up with Aisle Planner?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of a fun story. I joke that I've already had like 3 midlife crises, like full career changes. But I'm originally from the East Coast. I moved out to California. I live in San Diego as well. I moved out here in the end of 2006, and actually worked in the government space for a while. And but have a background in sports management, nutrition, fitness. So 2010, quit corporate America to become a personal trainer. Long story short, as a personal trainer, decided I needed something to subsidize my income, and got a job as just a catering team manager. Had no intentions of doing anything, but 13 years later, had been in the industry now for 13 years. So started in the catering world. Worked for a caterer here local in San Diego for 4 years. Then moved into venue, actually ran and operated a venue that did catering, internal events, as well as restaurants for 3 years. Moved into the vendor space, worked for a national event rental linen company, and a year ago joined the Aisle Planner team. So 13 years, have done a lot in this industry, have worked in a lot of different capacities, heavily within like business development, sales, customer engagement capacity. And so have worked with so many different industry pros throughout the entire US and beyond over the course of that time period. Which kind of is what led me to here. Have had known the team with Aisle Planner for a while, and had always just really respected and appreciated what their vision was for the industry, where they came from, knowing that they were all ex-industry pros who were trying to create something valuable for our industry, to help with growth, scalability, and time management, which we're not very good at in this industry. So not only time management, but more so, I guess, like that work-life balance, and creating that time to have more of the work-life balance. And so yeah, joined the team a year ago. It's been a great Fun ride so far. Looking forward to a lot of bigger, better things to come as we continue to move on. But it's kind of a little bit of a background of who I am and what I've done here in the industry.
What a story. I love that you have that background in the industry. And I like that you said that about the IL team leadership too, because I think there are a couple different ways to go. You know, when you build tech products for our industry, which is heavily service focused, you've got to be careful because you need to make sure that you build it to serve, you know, to really go heavy on the customer service side. But tech is all about efficiency, and sometimes you can't be efficient. Like sometimes you have to be able to support the inefficiencies that create the relationships and things like that. And so I love that the team there and you even have that background, because now you can bring that, you can be very empathetic to the needs of the vendors, the pros that are in our industry. But you know, then you've also worked as kind of that frontline person where you're dealing directly with clients, so you know both sides of it.
No, absolutely. I think that there are some lanes where I'm really good at walking or, you know, talking the talk, but I think having walked the walk and understanding really what the need bases are, what the frustrations, what some of the challenges are that we face in our industry, and being able to utilize those to continue to help the team develop and grow and constantly change and refocus, you know, where our biggest goals in development are based on what is happening in the industry, what the industry is doing, where it's going, challenges that we're facing as an industry as a whole, to make sure that we're continuing to be that valuable resource.
Sarah, I have a question. When you were in corporate America, you know, probably much more structured than the environment you went into when you were doing not only personal training, but also catering management and then venues. Were there some things that really stuck out to you, especially as you made the transition into venues, that were like, gosh, why don't we have X?
I mean, yes, I think that, it's kind of funny, my previous background was all in tech actually also, but it was in telecommunications and then in the IT world, and heavily in like project managers and like PM work and that type of thing within the tech space. I think that really is it. I think it's process. I think it's having kind of these industry standards that you can fall back on, that work, are tried and true, that are easily available to you to be able to put into place. I feel like, and obviously each different vertical is very different, and there are certain software systems and certain process management systems that have geared themselves towards specific verticals within our industry. Cateries for a catering company, right? Social tables and triple seat for the restaurant venue community. Certain ones that had kind of gone down that lane. But for the most part, if you were someone, especially when I was in the venue, I did catering. I did in-house as well as out-of-house venue rental. I did large corporate type events within the space, and nothing really worked to support me in all of those needs. So unlike coming from corporate America, where there was a lot of structure, where there was a process for that, I felt like there tended to be a lot of, I need a process, I can't find it, so I'm creating it on my own. And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. And everybody works differently. And when you're creating a process that is your process, great, it works for you. But if tomorrow you aren't there, no one knows how to run the ship, because the process isn't a standard. It isn't a easily understood. It's, you know, my weird way of putting things in Google Drive. So, so I think that's something that really stood out, was just that lack of like, this is how you do it, this is how it's done. But I think that's also great, because we don't fall into that stagnation situation where you become, this is how it's always been done, so it's the way it is. And, you know, yeah, it might not be the best, or it might not, but it works. So like, just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But I would say that would be my biggest.
Do you ever feel like there's a time where a venue may not need a CRM system or any sort of tech tool solution?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal for any business when you open a business is to make money. Making money comes from sales. Sales comes from lead management. It comes from your process from the minute a client becomes interested and capturing that interest to taking them through the entire process and then finalizing it and moving them forward, right? So whether it's a 2-week process or a 2-year process, whatever type of business you tend to run, no, I mean, process is what keeps you going. It's what sets you up to be able to be scalable, to grow, to continue to be successful. The better the process, the more innate the process, the more work you can do with less effort, which is always our goal, right? Let's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, the efficiency piece there. And so that's the other part of this that I'm curious about are when someone is maybe just starting a venue, or maybe they're doing 10 weddings a year or 15 weddings a year, so really smaller scale, right? Do you still feel like there is value in using a system like this, maybe from even the time saving, instead of doing it out of a shoebox? You know, they're using a system. Do you feel like the actual time that a system like this saves them is worth the cost, you know, regardless of what it is? Because there's a range, right? Depending on what you use.
Mm-hmm. I do. I think that there's, and you can break that down in a few different ways, right? So even if you're a small business and maybe you only do 10, 15, 20 events a year, you want to have you want your client to have a professional experience with you. So having something like this, having a process management system is going to set you up for success. But it also means that if at some point down the line you do want to scale up, you want to grow, you want to take it to the next level, you're already going to have all those processes in place. And starting something, and Jonathan, I know you know this, starting at the beginning, getting those processes set up from the very beginning when you've got 1 or 2 or 3 clients is exponentially easier than trying to stop a wheel that's in full motion and change directions. So, you know, putting those processes in place, getting yourself set up for success. When you start a new company, you're putting your time in it, you're putting your energy in it. It's your baby. You're growing it from the ground up. Grow it in the most valuable way possible, not only to be able to scale later down the line, but especially when we're talking about a venue, you're not going to be there forever. If it is something where you might want to sell in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, having a process in place that someone can easily understand and take over, and that can be part of that sale, is monumental. I mean, that could make or break the value of the sale for you, because you're giving them a fully running machine versus them having to take the machine, take it apart, and put it back together in a way that works for them.
I love that you made that point, and that makes me think about when people are trying to sell their venue. It's very easy to really struggle with that because you've got the value of the property, right? All of the buildings, the land, et cetera. And then you've got value in the business. And a lot of times it's hard to understand those two things, but you're absolutely right. When you have a system and processes in place, you really have a much more valuable asset in the business itself that can now go on and complement and even either be a separate part of the sale or a complementary part of the sale that increases the overall value of, you know, what you're getting out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've got a process, you've got a structure, you've got all of that data and all of that information in one central location. It's invaluable from the business sales side. Absolutely.
I want to dive into Aisle Planner and understand a bit more. You mentioned Triple C, you mentioned social tables. There are obviously a growing number of options out there for venue owners. I'm curious, where, just from kind of a overarching high-level perspective, where does Aisle Planner really come in and meet the needs of the venue industry?
So with Aisle Planner, the system is set up as a multifaceted tool, right? So unlike some of the others, and like I said, those two particularly were created back in the day, and a while ago at this point now, but were created with the intention of a restaurant wanting to be able to expand past restaurant experience and having a private dining experience in-house, right? So there's some layout management that happens within there. There's the BO, et cetera, but it's very much from that side. Aisle Planner is a 3-tiered tool. So you have your lead management, which is actually creating your lead contact forms, easily customizable to meet your brand, being able to modify them to gather the information you need from the client, dump it into a single sales funnel, which then has the ability to keep you on track to make sure none of those leads fall through. Once you've gathered that lead, you can take it through the entire sales process. The system has full contracting and proposal capabilities, including e-signatures, invoicing, and payment portal processing. So we have a banking backend that allows you to securely and seamlessly receive payments for venue rentals, et cetera. And you can build out your product library however big and however robust you want it to be, to include within those within that invoice and payment request, and then goes forward into your project management as well. So this is whether it's going to be external facing to your client, you can invite a client in and have a client facing portal, or if you are just using it from an internal process standpoint, you have that ability to build out your process. What happens from the minute the client books to the day of event? What needs to happen? When does it need to happen? Who's responsible for it? Assigning it to different people within your organization. And then secondarily, you've got a full layout tool in there. So you can have your internal layout documents already uploaded in there. They are set to scale. They are locked in place. You've already dropped in where electrical is, where the water is, et cetera, within the venue. And then once the actual time comes to build out the space for that particular client, it's pretty easy to just drag and drop your tables, color code them, make them pretty, do whatever you want, but be able to create that layout form. There's a budgetary tool in there that you could use for some internal processes and resources. You could use it as an internal venue management tool. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that you could use the system for outside of just a client sales management capacity.
Wow. So overall property management as well as the relationship management with the clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we aren't a time roll or a payroll, timestamp type company. That's a secondary conversation. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can use it to create your internal events, to talk through different business needs and make sure that you're set up for success and nothing's falling through the cracks. It's about creating that process and having that process work for you. I kind of joke that it's a virtual assistant for all intents and purposes. The goal of the system is to be set up so that it's working for you. It's telling you what to do, and it's keeping you on task and on track within the organization.
Sarah, does it work for small teams? Let's say we have a venue, maybe 10,000 square feet, couple different spaces, and you have your facilities person, maybe you have your sales manager, you have maybe a marketing person. So there's a couple of team members that you're working with. Is this a good tool that kind of can allow all of those people to collaborate through different access levels, or how does that component work?
Absolutely. So when you set up the account, you have a master user, right? You have your administrator of the account, and they're going to have access to all the back end. You can brand it out however you need it to meet the business needs, et cetera. But once you've done so, you're going to be able to invite org members into the program. Each org member has their own username and password. You can have as many org members in the system as you want. So it's not like you get 3 and then you're paying for seats on top of that. So you have your org team in the system. Those org teams can be set up at different permission levels. So if you've got a day of coordinator or 3, day of coordinators who are coming in and working, they could just have really basic level permissions to be able to go in and just be able to see the finished product, pull it, and execute on it, versus someone else on the back end, adding a facilities person. Absolutely. I love, especially from a venue standpoint, having an entire task list that's for facilities, right? I mean, there's so many things that's happening, especially if you are a busier venue. If you're a venue that's doing 3, 4, 5 events in a weekend because you've got multiple spaces within a property, it gets really confusing, and you want to make sure that your team's set up for success as well. So you can talk within a specific project. You also just have a high level task management tool. So it's not based on a project. It's not based on a particular event. It's just, hey, maybe you're doing a spring grounds upkeep, like, update, and the venue is going to be closed for a month. And these are all the things that need to happen within that month because you're doing brand new garden planting and some tree excavation, all of the fun things, right? So yeah, you could then create like a project for that, or just general task lists that say, hey, this is what needs to be done on this date because we have this project happening in-house. So yeah, I mean, it's the goal within the system is to work as a communication tool, but a communication tool on more of a micro level versus a macro level. Emails, we all know emails get heavy, they get cumbersome, your string gets 30, 40, 50 long. A lot of us use the G Suite. Yes, you can break it apart, but most of us don't do that, and it collapses everything together. You're looking for a specific conversation that you had at one point, and you're going back and there's 45 minutes of your time, versus just going into the project going, okay, I was talking about landscaping, oh, there it is, there's the comment thread, okay, he did it, great, done, all good.
Is there, and you made me think about this when you said that because that's so relatable, is there a search feature within Aisle Planner that allows you to actually like search like for landscaping or whatever that keyword was that you were looking for? Or is it just, you're saying you can actually go to the project and see the communication within the app?
So within each project, you can categorize and soon to be an actual tagging option also. So with that, you could actually like tag or categorize certain things. So like these are all landscape things, right? These are going to the kitchen. These are going to front of house marketing. And you could tag them so that you could actually search within that project. It's not like a search tool where it's going to like keyword search throughout the entire system if you've got 20, 30, 40 projects going. No, you're not going to be able to do that, but you will have your entire task list available to you on a pretty easy one-click button. It'll pull down, it'll say general tasks, it'll put upcoming notifications, kind of all of that. And so if anyone has communicated back and forth with you, you'll be able to see all of those happening within that drop-down alert notice as well.
You're talking about a lot of different features that are really cool, and I think are especially applicable when you have maybe in-house bar, catering, planning, things like that. If someone wanted to use the Aisle Planner system, would they have to use all of those features? Or if they were just kind of a blank canvas venue and all they're doing is just selling the space for the day and they want to use the tool, the space planning layout tool, are those options as well? Or just does everything come with the system?
So everything comes with the system. So right now you get all aspects of the system within a subscription. The subscription is actually based on the number of active projects that you have. But if a project isn't client facing, then you could have like, instead of doing a project per event, when you do 65 events a year, you could have a project per month maybe, and then have the 7 layouts that you've created for that month for the events that are coming up as part of the layout tool. Really, it's yours to use how best is going to fit the needs of your venue. But no, you can use all of it. You can use just a piece of it. I mean, I think there's a lot of value add to be had across the board. But from a sales side, you can, so say it's a property that handles some coordination, but it's just heavily in that sales side, right? They go through the sales. Once the sale is done, they hand it over to the external coordinator who's handling the entire planning process. And maybe all they're doing is creating that layout. Great. Sales, you can draft up, you can execute 150 invoices a year without ever really thinking about it. It's unlimited as far as what you can do from the sales side. And then once we get into the project, depending on how we need to utilize it, we can talk through how best to set it up for success from a business capacity.
That's huge. That's so cool because I feel like this is something that you want to start using for just the simple fact of being able to scale. Because as a new venue owner, or really as we were getting started, our first couple projects, we took from, kind of inception or even construction to now a couple years down the line where we're doing over $1 million in sales. And for us, we kept adding on layers, but in the beginning, we didn't want to add all the layers because we didn't have all the answers quite yet, or we didn't really have the experience yet. So for those new first-time venue owners or people who are kind of getting into the venue space who maybe come from different industries, I think it's great to have a system like this that you can start using a base layer of systems. And then when you want to add on planning or add on catering or add on whatever, you're working with a system that can actually scale with you. That's
absolutely,
pretty
yeah.
neat.
Yeah, you can use it at its bare minimum and just kind of have it as, your internal process management. But yes, absolutely. As you build, as you grow, as you change your business structure, and are fluid with the industry, which I think is so important for our industry, then yeah, you can use it for what brings the most value to you and your business at that given time.
I love that. I'm curious about kind of the overall life cycle, and just let's maybe talk through some more of the tools that Aisle Planner has. So from a lead management system, do you guys have like a contact form that integrates on people's websites? Can you share a little bit how that works?
Absolutely. So yes, within the system, you have there is an area where you can build out and create lead contact forms. Those lead contact forms do live within Aisle Planner. However, once you've built it out, and you can build it out, as I mentioned, to be as robust as you want, you can also create as many contact forms as you want. Each contact form, when you create it, is going to have a unique URL as well as a unique embedded code built out for that particular contact form. So when you pull that embedded code and you put it on the back end of your website, it'll seamlessly flow right into your web page or into your website. You still have your static menu bar up top, still part of your overall website. It just now has that embedded, that additional information, that form, so to speak, embedded into your contact us page. But when they hit submit, everything that has to do with that particular contact form falls into place. So with each contact form, not only can you custom create it, I think that's very important. Where you're receiving your lead from makes a big difference into what information you would like to request. If they are coming from your website, for all intents and purposes, that is a very warm lead. You have a very, very, very high rate of close with those clients because they know the business, they know the pricing, they've seen the pictures, they've really done that full scale knowledge deep dive into who you are and what you can offer them. If they're coming from social, they're looking at pretty pictures, but they don't know a whole lot about what you actually offer, right? They just love that. They love the aesthetic. They love what they see as far as what the venue can be. If it's coming from a paid lead source, if it's coming from a Here Comes the Guide or Wedding Pro or brides.com, usually you have a very small blurb. You have a couple pictures. It's very static. It's not very integrated. And those tend to be sources that people more so do like a net throw, right? They just kind of throw it out there and see who bites, and then they start going through that information. So the information you're going to want to capture from those different lead sources is going to be different, which is where creating those different contact forms can really set you up for success. In addition to that, after they submit on that contact form, they're going to receive an auto response email. That auto response email can also be custom catered based on the contact form. So again, somebody from your website, warm, and you can include a secondary document with it. So maybe with that, you include a getting to know you questionnaire that goes a little bit deeper into what the client's really looking for, versus something like a paid source where it's very, very high level information that they're going off of, where it can instead circle them back to the website, maybe send over a standard brochure of services so they see what cost looks like, etc. So you can really customize. The goal is to have the lead contact form work for you to gather the resources and the information that you need, while also presenting the information the client's going to need to make sure that you both are set up for success when you are scheduling that initial consultation, that it's valuable for both of you.
I love that you have something different for social media versus for the website, because you're totally right. Social media, it could be something, they see it on Instagram real quick, they're driving, someone's in process, right, in motion, and they're just going to quickly, and you just want to capture the information that you need to get back to them, not necessarily like every piece of detailed information about their event. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. Are you able to track how many lead forms get filled out, per different contact form? And my question here is, I'm thinking about venues being able to track where their best leads are coming from. So do you have that capability on the site?
You do. So when you are in your lead, once you get through creating the lead contact form, you can also set up your lead process. Sorry, there's an app. And so you can set up your lead process. But within that lead contact form, you're going to want to request what the lead source is, what service type they're interested in, those types of things. All of that information is captured and stored within your lead processor. So you can then later go in and say, okay, let's look at received versus lost. So let's go in, let's look at everybody that we lost within a period of time. Now let's look at where those people came from. Let's also look at the reason why we lost them, because whenever you change someone to lost, change them in the system to say, hey, we lost them, it's going to ask for the why. These are all customizable by you. And so now you're looking and you're like, all right, great. This is a lead source that I spend $250 a month on. I get a ton of leads on it, which is why I always thought it was a great use and value. However, now that I'm actually looking at this data, I'm seeing that 95% of them do not book, and they don't book because of budget. So yes, I'm getting a whole lot of inquiries, but I'm not getting inquiries that are truly a positive fit for me and my venue. This might not be the best means of monetary utilization, right?
Putting the marketing dollars. Yeah, putting the marketing dollars to work.
It's so expensive to buy a venue, run a venue. There's labor involved. There's the cost of the tools, the CRMs, tables and chairs if you're going to do that, like all of the different things that you need. And then on top of that, you're thinking about spending marketing dollars. If you're spending $500 to $1,000 a month, that's $6,000 to $12,000 a year. You want to know that money that you're spending is absolutely converting at like at least 5x rate, right? 5 to 10x to 20. Like
I would want 10, yes.
Yeah, you want to make sure that every single one of those dollars is being put to good use. And so, if you're using any one of those marketing platforms and it's not paying off, I know we regularly, I think quarterly actually, we take a look at it and across the 5 venues that we have, and we say, okay, what's performing well, what's not performing, and the things kind of go on a watch list. Like if we're not really getting a lot of leads from a platform and then those leads are not actually converting, that's a platform that we may not be staying on for very long, just because of, we want to make sure that we're very efficient with our marketing dollars. So
absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so take me then to kind of, once the lead gets in, you have some lead tracking stuff, then you get into the actual CRM, sales process. You mentioned you do have, you can send out proposals and contracts and you can take in money, correct?
Correct. Yep. So once we get into the sales world, you have the ability to create a handful of different documents. So static kind of brochure style documents, just single page, non-editable, really more informational docs, but everything within the system is going to be timestamped because it is being sent by the system, because they're opening it from a link within the email that you send them, but it opens technically on the back end of the system. Everything's going to be timestamped. You're going to be able to see when did they open it, how often have they opened it, when it was accepted, when it was signed, all of those types of things. So you can send out some static documents as well. You can send out proposals. A proposal is going to require a signature by the client in acceptance of whatever that is. I now say your force majeure clauses, your rescheduling clauses, anything like that that is important to not only have in your contract and have an initial by, but have them actually like have a signature on it as well. But you can create all of those as well as just general proposals, as well as contracts. Contracts are going to be require both signers as well as a countersign once all signers have accepted and signed off on the document. For each particular document, you can create your template, like your templated document, your standard document with input and merge fields. But then when you actually go to send it out, you can add as many signers to it as you want. So it's not one single signer. You can send, if it needs to be, say it's a corporate event that's happening and the entire board needs to sign off on it, we can go ahead and we can send it to multiple people. And then you're going to receive those notifications as they sign, as it comes back. And then once everyone has signed, you have the opportunity to go ahead and countersign. With the invoicing, yes, you can also send out invoicing. And if you have gone through the process of setting yourself up on our back-end banking system, then you can ask for credit card and or ACH payments through the system. It is secure portal. They'll go through a reCAPTCHA system and then be allowed to put in their information. That credit card information is stored on the back end. You as the org member do not have access to it, so you do not have to worry about liability from that, of it being stored like within your system. I know that was a huge thing when I had a venue. I had all of this credit card information. And so, I mean, storing it on my computer, storing it in the hard version in Office, no matter what it is, it puts you at a level of liability. And so now this is all stored on the back end. And the client can just hit accept when the next payment is due. They'll get a notification versus it just automatically being charged. They'll get a notification, the payment is due. Do you accept? Yes. Go on with our day.
Perfect. Wow, that's so convenient for those sometimes not awkward conversations, but if the payment's coming up that's due or something like that, it's way easier to have some sort of automation built in that allows the client to take care of that instead of calling them up and saying, hey, that payment. Now you might still have to call them up if they go due for a long time, but that's a kind of a different conversation. You know which one you're having, and it's easier for the clients on the front side who are going to pay.
Absolutely. And I mean, even from an accounting standpoint, when you get into if you are working through, say you are a venue that has 3 locations in-house and you are open 7 days a week because you do both some corporate or small scale reoccurring, like during the week daytime stuff, as well as your big events, nights and weekends. It gets cumbersome. We all have so much on our calendar, and to add payment due, and have to fight for that information. Yeah, it just makes it so much more complicated. And then for those of us who don't have a 5-person CPA team sitting back there, but when you get into busy season, when you are executing, but you're still managing as well, it becomes really cumbersome. And so the more opportunity you have to create automatic processes, the higher rate of efficiency and efficacy that you're going to be able to continue moving forward with, right? So it's just, like I said, process is about setting yourself up for success. It's about putting the time in today to save yourselves hundreds of hours in the future, because now you've got a process that works and it's working for you.
Totally. I have last question here, and then I want to ask about just how much the system costs, so we kind of have a baseline for understanding around that, and then we'll wrap for today. And I know we're not even really scratching the surface of everything the Aisle Planner does, but just to give a good overview for folks who are looking for a solution, I think this has been great. But do you guys integrate with like QuickBooks or Xero or any other accounting software that kind of can help merge what's happening on the venue side with income, but then you've got that whole other world of expenses and payroll and time and attendance and all of that. So do you integrate somehow?
We do. So we actually utilize and work with or are a part of these integration tools, Zapier. So Zapier is a corporate backend integration tool. I'm not going to get super deep into it because I don't have a robust knowledge of Zapier. But yes, Zapier is an API. It's a plugin tool that will allow you to integrate Aisle Planner with any of the other companies that also work with Zapier, QuickBooks being one of them for sure. It will talk forward. So basically anything that happens within the Aisle Planner system, it will send that payment over to QuickBooks saying, hey, we received a payment today. Here's all of the information so that you can then reconcile it against your back end. There are some additional systems that Zapier works with as well, but you can go in, if you go to Zapier.com, you can really kind of take a deep dive into all of the things that they offer and set yourself up for success. But yeah, I mean, because it is a cloud-based tool, because it is a web-based cloud-based service, any API style tool, if there is a build out for that, you can usually integrate us into it.
That's huge. I like the Zapier. Zapier, from my understanding, is all around kind of this like if this, then that architecture. And so it's like if the client, marks or if you mark something as paid, then it sends a message to QuickBooks or whoever, or sends a Slack message or creates a board on Asana or whatever. So yeah, Zapier is definitely very, very cool and really activates a lot of the tools and getting them to talk to each other so that you don't have extra admin going between all the different tools that you have to use if you need to use other tools.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, QuickBooks, MailChimp, HubSpot, some of those like bigger systems that we work with from a sales and business management capacity. There are some minor things staying within the industry, right? So going back, looking at like Wedding Pro or the Knot, you can't, it gets a little fuzzy what you can do from their system, more so because of how their system is set up, but there is some integration that you can do, at least that it will tell you that a new lead was like received and then being able to go and grab that information. So if you use a secondary system like that, but if you just have it integrated within the system, then they fall right there.
Perfect. Awesome. Let's wrap up by talking about price. How much does IO Planner cost? Are there like different levels of packaging or pricing? Give me the rundown on that.
Absolutely. So IO Planner, the pricing structure is based on the number of active projects that you have in the system. So as I mentioned earlier, a project can be either the actual client event. So if you are a venue that also does full coordination and planning services, then you're most likely going to want to create a new project for every single client that you book, because it's going to allow you to have that client interface within the client-facing portal, assign tasks to them right through the system, create their budget, create their layout, their RSVP and guest list, etc. So at that point, you would look at how many active projects do you have going at any given time. If you book, say, 18 months out, but you don't actually start the planning process with them until 6 months out or 90 days out, something like that, I have some back end ways where you can create like a secondary checklist on your lead tool that alerts you that this client is now coming up on that 90-day period, say maybe 30 days further out, so that you can turn them into a project at that time. So you don't have an active project sitting in the system that you aren't working within. But lots of ways that we can manipulate it. But basically it is how many projects you're working in at that given time. There is no contract. There is no cancellation fee. You can move up and down in the number of projects that you have active at any given time by just prorating. So if we set it for 25 and it happens to be a crazy spring and it's great and we're going into a busy summer because it's not going to be insanely warm that year, and you've got more business coming in because more people are willing to do outside spaces, then we could go ahead, we could bump up to a 50. And then as soon as we aren't working with that number, we could bump right back down. So you can really manipulate it as you go. But as I mentioned, that is based solely on the number of projects. The sales side is completely unlimited to you. So if you are a venue that does both, you could go ahead and you could sell or create 100 contracts, 100 invoices in the system, have that as your full sales management process, but then actually convert only over the 20 or 25 that you are doing full coordination with in-house.
Got it. Wow, that's huge. And it seems like it's very, like you can manipulate it to fit not only your budget, but like the venue's use case, because you have the unlimited sales side, but then that makes a lot of sense. So is it in bundles of 25 or is it per event, or is there kind of like a cliff?
So it's bundled out. It starts right now at 10 as a minimum, and then works its way up from there. So as of today, 10 projects is $39.99, and then it moves up from there to an unlimited basis. With a venue specifically, it would be hard to ever get into like over 250 because we only have so many days in the year, right? We only have so many days that are actually executable. So, but there are different tiers depending on how many projects you need to have open at any given time. If you are a 250 project a year venue, absolutely, we have a plan for that. A lot of those, once we get into the larger ones, we want to really talk to you. We want to find out what is going to be best for you. We do have some standards, but my ideal would be to get on the phone and actually talk through how you're going to be utilizing it and making sure we're getting you set up for success. But starting at 50, going up to the sky's the limit, and everything in between. But most of our venue users are somewhere in the $89 to $279 a month range, depending on how many active events they actually have going on at any given time.
Perfect. That's amazing. That's I was literally about to ask you that, like, what's your kind of average venue spending? But that's neat, and that's right in line with other tools, and really cool. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing with us all about Aisle Planner. It's been a pleasure to get to know you more personally, but then also, of course, the system. And if someone is interested in reaching out to Aisle Planner, working with Aisle Planner, you're one of the people they talk to, correct?
I am. So
Amazing.
absolutely. We're a small but mighty team, but yes. So you are more than welcome to reach out to either hello@aisleplanner.com or customer service@aisleplanner.com. But if you go on aisleplanner.com, there's a little bot right there where you can reach out directly as well. So whatever works best for you. Our team is available from 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday until 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we do have a someone floating watching the system on the weekends. For anything emergent. But we are here. We're here to help. We are here to set you up for success. We want to make sure that our goal is always to ensure that it is the right system for you, that it is going to bring the most value to you, your team, and your client, and then get you set up to be with it for the long haul.
Love it. Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing what's to come.
Definitely. Me too.